going to be working with a few things with Castor. So we're going to be working on our calm standing default behavior. We're adding some time to that and some cues to that. Then we'll be touching a target and then feeding him in position. And again, I learned all these things from the Mustang Maddie course and from Mustang Camp. So now that he has like a couple seconds, I'm adding my arm over my other arm cue as his cue to do just standing still. So I put my left arm over my right arm, and then I'll start counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll click, and then I'll feed him. So you can see again after he's done eating his treat, which you don't have to throw in the bowl. I just did there's my cue, 1, 2, 3, click, and then feed. So right now I'm just kind of doing different times because I want to click before he's, moving his head or doing anything like that. So, but I want to increase the amount of time. So here's the cue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click, and then feed. I'm probably counting faster than it is on the video. Cue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, click, and then feed. And my goal here is really to get to about 10 and then build up from there. So there's the cue, counting, and then click, and then I'll click, take my hands off the cue, and then feed him. So the idea here, so there's my cue again, is to have that cue and then he'll go into the standing behavior, which I should have taught him a very long time ago, and was really the key to a lot of my issues here, was not having just a default standing behavior. So this is super, super important, and it's definitely helped him so much. Like that could have been the first thing I should have worked on. So here's my cue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click, and then feed. And I'm just gonna give him a jackpot while I get my target out, but I'm gonna make a real-time video where I'm not voicing over, so you can really see the cue. He's not blocking me, and then you can see the countdown as I do it while I'm just talking, so it's a little bit easier to see. So I'm asking him to touch the target. He goes toward it. I'm clicking as he goes toward it, not when he touches it, and then I'm going to reward him back here. That was really nice. So the idea is to get him, and I'm going to go back to standing. So here's my cue for standing. He's not standing. So if he's not doing the behavior, I'll just say whoops, or you can use whatever. I don't like saying no because it sounds like whoa, but I'll be like oops, and then I'll go back into my cue, and then I'll click. And then I clicked for the standing behavior, but I want to put him back in where I want him. So the goal here would be touch the target and then have him back up 3 steps to get the reinforcement. So, and he wanted to come forward in that standing behavior. So again, I'm asking him to stand here, and then I'll click and feed. And then I'm just kind of switching. I'm going to put him back a couple steps because he's anticipating touching that target. So the goal here is to have him touch the target when I ask, and then feed back 3 steps. So I'll just be putting my hand underneath his chin. He'll back up a few steps to get the reinforcement. And he struggles with that in the beginning. So I asked him for calm default here, and I'll feed him in position because he hasn't moved, so it looks good. But he's kind of struggled a little bit in the beginning of going back to get the reinforcement. So I'm queuing default here. Click, and then I'll feed. I'll feed back. There we go. And I didn't really do any feeding for position either, like feeding in the position that I want. I did a little bit of that in the leading because I had heard about that a little bit, but this really helped explain it to me. And then the horse, when you feed in the position that you want, then the horse will want to go in that position more often. Basically, is what that is. And you can kind of help feed your horse where you want them to be, and they'll start moving. Like they don't necessarily have to stand still, they can move as well. So there, he just wants to reach his head back, so I really ideally would like him to move his feet back, and they might have a little bit of hard time with that in the beginning. So I'm gonna ask him a little bit more, and I might add in a click as he moves his feet back just to show him, yeah, this is what I wanted you to move those feet back. So I asked him to touch the target one time, and now he's like, I want to go forward, go forward, go forward. So he's really stuck on that go forward. There, I click him for taking that step back. And he, again, wants to go forward. That's okay, but that's going to be really important here, is that feeding back for him is so I can put him back in that position and still be rewarding him for staying still, and he's still successful. He's not getting frustrated, because before I would just not feed him because I'm like, I don't want him to go forward, and then he'd throw in all these other behaviors, he'd walk off, and it would just be much worse. So instead, he is standing still. He's just not in the position I want. So if he's standing still here, I can click here, and then I can feed where I want him to be. So then we both win basically. Like he gets to be reinforced for staying still. I'm teaching him what I want, and I can go put him in that position. And then once he's in this position, now I can just feed rapidly, like over and over, high rate for reinforcement for being in that position. So I can cue default of standing again, and then I can ask him to put that foot back, and then I can feed him here. Then I'll ask him to touch the target again. So I'm clicking before he gets to it, and he didn't have to take as many steps. I put this stick a little bit closer to him, and then I'll feed back. But really I want him to just be waiting for me to ask him what the target to go for. I'm asking for default again here, so I'll click that. That looks really nice. And I didn't really know that I should have a cue for standing still, just like I did with, like I talked about in my previous videos. Like when you're using negative reinforcement, you really take that for granted. You're like, well, they're staying still, so they're not doing anything. Like you don't have to cue it. You do with clicker training. So now I gave him another treat for staying still. So feeding here because I want him in that position. He's not moving forward, so I'm just going to click and feed. Ask him to go back. There we go. That's the spot I wanted him to be in. So I'm just going to click and feed for this spot. So that was his first attempt at that, but that was pretty good. He figured out that feeding back, so I'm just going to end with giving him a jackpot on the ground so he doesn't get worried that I'm leaving with the food.